Hello, this is my lesson summary video for the things that we learned this week. Please excuse the lighting and the pictures behind me. I live with my family and I share with my younger sister, and there are 7 of us, so it gets kind of noisy. So this was the quietest place that I could find to do this video, so please bear with me. So what we learned this week is we took a deeper look at the idea of culture and how it affects communication. Culture impacts our communication in a very fundamental way and also in a variety of different ways. It affects how we interact with the world and with people. It affects our actions, our communication, and the way we say things, what we say and how we say things. And this is all different depending on the people's cultural backgrounds because of the distinct differences of each cultural background. One of the things that we learned from our book this week, So You Want to Be Interpreter, is that someone can be a part of more than one cultural group. Professor Faylauer said a really cool thing in his video this week, and he said that somebody's filter or their lens on how they see the world and view communication can be impacted by more than one culture. I thought that was a very cool thing to say about this topic, and I wanted to add it. The example that he used, and again, I'm using this just because I think it's a very good example, is a deaf person who is clearly a part of deaf culture. Take that same person and say that person is a part of a different religious group, and a religious group is a culture itself. So now the way that person interprets things and perceives things and the way they say things and act is affected not only by deaf culture but also by their religious group, and it's an example of being multicultural. Another thing that we learned is that culture, communication, and language are deeply related. How someone communicates will be influenced by their cultural background, beliefs, and norms. Something that we learned from one of our videos this week, Stepping Out of the Shadows, by Miss Anna Marathu. Forgive me if I pronounced that wrong. I'm going to give the description of this video so that I can get into my next point. The description is, she examines how interpreters tend to approach role conception, definition, and implementation from an interpreter-centric perspective, and how this approach to our work is the result of role conceptions that foster their ideal of interpreter as invisible and or non-involved. Now, one of the points that she was trying to make in this video, I believe, one of the many points, but the point that I'm going to point out that she was trying to make in this video is interpreters should be involved in what they're interpreting, engaged in what they're interpreting. It's very important that the interpreter is engaged in what they're interpreting. She gave us an example. She was saying that when she was going to school to be an interpreter, that one of her teachers told her that she should be like an object, like a telephone, just simply relaying what the person is trying to say. But it's very important that we're engaged in what we're interpreting, because it's important of not only what is said, but how it's being said, because this person is trying to express a message. So it's very important that we not only interpret, but make sure that it's very important that we're not only interpreting what is said, but how it's being said. And I believe that's one of the points that she was trying to make. In our last video this week, we learned about identity by Professor Laura Jackson, and she gave us a definition of culture. She defined culture for us. It includes knowledge, beliefs, art, moral laws, and customs. And my favorite thing that we learned this week, or that I learned this week, and my favorite thing about this video in particular, is that she gave us a list of what an effective interpreter looks like, and I thought this was very cool. She said an effective interpreter identifies his or her own cultural identity and understands how that affects communication expectation. An effective interpreter understands communication norms of various groups and avoids making judgments of groups or norms that differ from their own. I thought this taught me something very important, and I thought this was my favorite thing that we touched on this week. It gave me an idea of what an effective interpreter looks like. So this is what I learned this week, and this is my lesson summary for this week, and I look forward to learning more. Thank you.